Hi, I'm Jerry Lipkin. At Valley National Bank, we believe consumers need help understanding the complex banking and financial issues affecting their lives. That's why we're proud to support the programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation.
How insurance fraud cost you, next on Caucus, New Jersey.
Funding for this edition of Caucus, New Jersey has been provided by Valley National Bank, Felician University, a 21st century education based on timeless values, New Jersey Resources, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, the New Jersey State Nurses Association, and the Institute for Nurses, advocating, positioning, educating NJ's RNs. NJ Best, New Jersey's 529 college savings plan. Turn a dream into a degree. And by Choose New Jersey. Our mission is attracting companies to the Garden State. Promotional support provided by NJ Biz, all business, all New Jersey. And by the New Jersey Chamber of Commerce, the statewide voice of business in New Jersey.
Welcome to Caucus, New Jersey. I'm Steve Adubato. You know, insurance fraud is not a victimless crime. It costs New Jersey residents $1,300 per year and has a very negative impact on the state's economy. Here in the studio to discuss what insurance fraud is and what it means to you, we're joined by Ward Sanders, president of the New Jersey Association of Health Plans. Phyllis Salowe-Kaye is executive director of New Jersey Citizen Action. Terri DiGiorgio, supervisory special agent at the National Insurance Crime Bureau. And finally, Christopher Yu, acting insurance fraud prosecutor in the New Jersey office of the Attorney General. I thank all of you for joining us to talk about insurance fraud. Chris, we've been having this conversation for the last year and a half or so. Put this in context, also a series of PSAs running on public television right now about insurance fraud. What is the issue and why does it matter?
Well, thank you so much for having us here today, Steve. I think it's a very important issue, insurance fraud. Many people don't see it as a crime. You have your ordinary citizens who would normally not go out and rob a bank or steal from other individuals, but we have them committing insurance fraud, whether it's on an application that they're lying on, whether they're submitting for claims or benefits that they actually didn't receive. So it affects everybody as a whole, not just the insurance industry, but individuals.
But why, see, we're talking about insurance fraud. Is that different from lying on a bank application, about a loan? I just want to understand, is insurance fraud some unique kind of fraud?
I don't think it's necessarily unique. Fraud is fraud. People are misrepresenting themselves or misrepresenting their assets or misrepresenting whatever claim they have. But specifically insurance fraud, it affects all of us, each individual. Say we have workers' compensation fraud. If your boss is not paying up the workers' compensation fraud, you might not be adequately covered if you get hurt at work. Say there's life insurance fraud. If someone comes to you and said, hey, we can give you a free policy for a year, usually they only pay part of the premium and let it lapse, so maybe you won't be covered. It affects individual people, not just corporations.
Just jump in here. Ward, and I'll come back to you. Phyllis, what's the difference between fraud, waste, and abuse when we're talking about insurance?
Sure. The three concepts are often talked about together, but the waste and abuse are sort of the cousins of fraud. I think of fraud as something where there's a knowing and willful violation. Intent. So in the law we call it mens rea, but it's, yes, you have to have an intention and an understanding of what you're doing. Waste and abuse can be inappropriate use of resources. It's having tests that don't really matter or aren't.
That's not what we're talking about.
That's waste and abuse, but there's no intent here. Fraud is materially different because it's the intent. The person knows what they're doing and intends to do it.
So it's most common, you're making what?
Well, I guess my concern is that we seem to only be talking about fraud being committed by an individual or consumer.
Consumers, yeah.
And we see a lot of fraud being committed by the providers, whether it's of health care or auto insurance. It's not just a one-way street. Certainly there are individuals that have defrauded the system, but there's also many instances, whether it's auto body shops when you take your car for repair and they build up the bill, or providers of insurance like hospitals that when you check your bill, you find out that there's lots of things on there that you never contracted for or knew that you had. So I'm concerned about that we're just talking about fraud by an
Sorry for interrupting,
individual.
Phyllis. Phyllis makes an interesting point. I've often thought about this fraud thing, and I say to myself, first of all, how does it start? And I guess every case is different. But in order to successfully, and I use that word advisedly, successfully execute insurance fraud, a consumer cannot do it alone. A consumer would need the collaboration of others. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're right about that. The collaboration, that's where you will bring in the criminal runners. In New Jersey, we have a criminal runner statute.
Explain that to us.
A runner is a person that, for any kind of financial benefit, refers a patient to a medical provider or an attorney, gets his fee, and also pays.
The runner gets the fee?
Yes.
Like, okay,
The
go
runner
ahead.
gets a fee from the doctor or the attorney, and we're talking about unscrupulous doctors and attorneys. We're not talking about the average doctor. What we do is medical provider fraud. That's what we concentrate on in Edison, New Jersey. Okay, getting back to the runner, they recruit people, and unfortunately they go into low-income areas, urban areas where people feel, okay, I can jump on this. I can make a couple of bucks on this.
What's this? Explain to us, and this is
Okay.
where we get torn in public television. I know we need to talk about specific instances, but someone would say, well, you just taught people how to do this. But the fact is, we need to help people understand what exactly you're talking about. Could you give us a concrete example?
Yes, I mean, well, I can give you a concrete example. I'm not going to mention doctors' names.
Don't need that. We don't need names of anyone or anything, but call it what it is and explain it.
It's called insurance fraud. It's called stage accident scams that relate to
Staged accident?
staged accidents. Yeah, there are people that will actually stage an accident, hit each other, or they will say that they were in a staged accident, that they were in an accident, and then they will.
In their cars?
In the cars, yes.
And then what?
They act like they're hurt, or maybe they are hurt, but they staged it, they caused it. Sometimes they hit innocent people, and many times it's two people that are corroborating, and they hit each other.
And then what do? They make the claim to the insurance company.
They make these claims to the insurance company.
But are doctors involved too sometimes?
Yes. Yes.
Chris, so this isn't just, Phyllis makes a good point. This isn't consumers driving this by themselves.
Right. It's not. It's consumers, it's providers, it's like we talked about, it's everybody. So as Terry was talking about staged accidents, a lot of times we see these runners out there, individuals who show up at accident scenes or go and get police reports and determine that, hey, somebody's been in an accident, will give money to or encourage an individual to see a certain doctor that they're getting paid by.
Do they know something about that doctor?
Usually they're employed by the doctor in some shape or form to come get medical services from this doctor so the doctor can bill the insurance company. So a lot of times it is legitimate. People are legitimately hurt. We're not taking that away from individuals. But other times the doctors will make you come back and treat 2 or 3 or 4 times to maintain the billing, whether it's private insurance or whether it's Medicaid.
But let me play devil's advocate. What would you say to someone who says, look, the system, it's too expensive, insurance is too expensive, this is an opportunity for me to recoup something back. I've been presented with this opportunity. Who am I hurting? Come on, Phyllis.
You're hurting everybody.
Explain that.
Because the cost gets passed on.
How?
In our premiums, just the same way if you.
It gets put in the
Insurance
bill?
company, well, the cost of your premium, whether it's health care or auto, raises because somebody has to cover the frauds when they're discovered. If you go to Macy's and buy a pair of pants, you're paying extra for those pair of pants to pay for people who shoplift at Macy's. I mean, fraud is built into the consumer's cost of whether it's a policy or an item that they purchase.
So are
Insurance
consumers- so
companies know they're getting scammed, so they cover that when they charge you your premium.
So to call this a, quote, victimless crime is absolutely wrong.
Absolutely right. And Phyllis is right, too, that I think that there is consumer fraud. In healthcare, you see some identity fraud, where someone isn't really insured, but they'll have a card that they've either stolen or that they'll use from a relative and purport that there's someone that they're not to get services. But that's a small piece of the fraud pie. Really, most of the provider fraud is on the provider side, sometimes in cahoots with consumers, but oftentimes not. It's things like billing for services that you didn't provide. It's upcoding. So the
Upcoding.
technical term, but it's the billing. It's the language that carriers, insurance companies, and providers speak to make sure the payment is made. They will bill for a code that has a higher reimbursement than the service that they really provided. Again, the consumer may not even know, but the provider is aware of it. The consumer role here, by the way, and the consumers can have a role in helping to solve this. I think of Homeland Security. If you see it, say something.
Who do you say? Hold on, back up. Who do you say it to, Chris? I'll come back to you, Phyllis. Who do you say it to? And by the way, let's put up the information right now. Who do you say it to, and what do you say?
So you can call my office. We have a fraud hotline, 1-877-55-FRAUD. Or you can
Say that again?
1-877-55-FRAUD. Or you can go to our website, NJInsuranceFraud.org.
What happens when you go there? And what happens when you call?
When you go to our website, when you call, we have a hotline that's manned, I think 8 to 5, a little bit normal business hours, and we have civil investigators who are able to talk you through the situation, determine whether it is actual insurance fraud or some other grievance that maybe we can help direct you to someplace else. And we have intake forms where we can have criminal investigators delve a little bit deeper into or contacting the insurance agencies to speak with them to see if they're seeing something similar.
What about if someone's afraid, hey, listen, I'm pretty sure something is happening. I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm not sure I want to get that involved or have someone know that I was the one.
So on our website, you can also fill out documents, or I guess not necessarily applications, but documents that detail what the fraud is, what you think it is. And you don't necessarily have to leave your contact information, just to give us a lead, carrier information or personal information of the individual you think is committing fraud, so we can take a further, deeper dive into it.
You want to jump back in, Phyllis?
I just want to say, yesterday, Star Ledger, front page, $67 million. Medicaid fraud by an ambulance company that was taking seniors to places that weren't covered, showing up late, not showing up at all. That's fraud.
That's fraud.
They got paid. They got paid through the state of New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken.
So what's interesting about this is it happens on all levels. Yeah. You know what's interesting? The laws themselves, I'm curious about this. What is the law about insurance? I know there are multiple laws, but there are penalties here, because the public service announcement that we have airing on some of our programs actually talks about the penalties. What are the penalties? Can we talk about this?
So on the penalty side, we have healthcare fraud, which is often done by medical providers, doctors, chiropractors. It's a second-degree crime. You can face 5 to 10 years in jail, and the fine is up to $150,000. Do the doctors get fined that much? Usually not, but usually there's some amount of restitution or there's some monetary fine attached to it.
Quick, before we go to this break, what's the message you want to leave with consumers as we go after this break right now, who say, listen, I hear what you're saying. I didn't realize it was that extensive. But you know what? I'm just one person.
It is extensive. And the problem is the entitlement factor. But the general public, unfortunately, has an entitlement feeling that I've been paying my premiums all these years, so I'm entitled to get paid at some point.
I'm going to get mine?
Even if I don't have a legitimate claim.
Can you understand that psychology?
I can understand it, but I don't condone it.
It's a big difference.
Yeah.
Understanding someone's frustrated, but condoning an illegal act that hurts other people, two different things. Mm-hmm. Stay on that point. We'll come right back right after this, talking about insurance fraud in New Jersey and what it means to you. We'll be right back.
To see more Caucus New Jersey with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at steveadubato.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
Talking insurance fraud, everyone watching right now, follow the websites and the telephone numbers we put up right now. You were just saying during the quick break right now, there's a case involving the U.S. Attorney's Office. You're prosecuting right now. Tell us about that.
There was a case that was prosecuted. I'm not going to mention the name of the doctor, but he was out of Little Falls, New Jersey. You could look it up, and I'm sure you could easily find it. The doctor was basically falsifying documentation so that he could bill the insurance companies. So what he was doing, he was not seeing the patient. He would bill as if he was seeing the patient. He would falsify vitals. He'd falsify blood pressure readings, prescription medicines, any type of complaints. This went on for, I believe, between 2008 and 2013. He finally was indicted, and he pled guilty, and he thought he was going to receive probation. Unfortunately, that's a lot of times what happens. But prior to him being sentenced, the judge, excuse me, the judge was made aware of a workers' comp claim that he had filed a couple of days prior to that came to my desk. I found the claim with his name on it as a workers' comp claim claimant, not a doctor, not a medical provider. Filed a claim that he was, his distress due to filing the documentation that he was required to file gave him so much stress that he couldn't do his job anymore.
What happened?
He never told the insurance company he had been indicted. What happened is he received 3 years instead of 3 years in prison, $280,000 in restitution, and another 3 years supervised
Did he
release.
lose his license?
Yes.
This is no joke. And people who think, quote, I often hear people say this. Again, my job is to play devil's advocate. With all the things going on in the world, we're trying to deal with threats from foreign agents, if you will, and terrorism, as well as strife in our own country, and all kinds of difficult situations. We're doing this in the summer of 2016. And you want to talk about insurance fraud? Come on, how big a deal could this really be? Where'd it go? Because you know people are saying that right now.
I'll give you two concrete examples where I think this is really meaningful to folks. Number one, you look at a pharmacy that's turned into a pill mill. It's selling selling opioids. Selling opioids inappropriately. There's massive amounts of opioids going out the door.
Explain, opioids are tantamount to heroin in a pill.
And it's a killer. It's a pain medication that can be used appropriately, but it is overused. There's a street value to it. And there have been created these pharmacies that turn into pill mills that are just pumping out opioids. That's a killer.
What does that have to do with insurance fraud?
They'll bill for the insurance. The reason they're doing it is to make money. So they'll bill the insurance company for the services provided, but they're not actually, the money's just going out the door.
And in keeping those patients coming and billing the insurance companies, it victimizes the patient in a sense. They become drug addicts. Once they can't get the pills anymore, then they look for heroin.
And we're talking about the individual human impact. But Chris, we talked about $1,300 per person in the state. What about the economic impact of the state?
Right. So the state does fund the Medicaid to individuals who apply for it or are able to get it. So when you have I guess providers or individuals bilking the Medicaid system, it's costing the state money. It's costing our economy money. So there's not enough money to go around whether to service the individuals who actually need
the people really need that help.
That actually need the help. And it's costing the taxpayers money because we have to put more money into the system to pay for all of these fraudulent activity.
Phyllis, talk about the role that your organization, because your organization, we've talked to your organization for years, you advocate for consumers, you protect consumers, you help consumers. What the heck is the message on insurance fraud?
We try and educate consumers. So a consumer needs to be aware when they go to the hospital, when they come home, they have to read those bills, they have to read the EOBs, they have to see the state
of benefits.
Explanation of
benefits.
Thank you. They have to see what the hospital has charged. They have to see, lots of times there are things on there they never ordered. The families of consumers, we've had instances of nursing homes with severe Alzheimer patients being seen by therapists for weekly therapy sessions and billed, the insurance company gets billed at a psychiatrist or psychologist rate. And the person who is in the nursing home can't communicate with anyone.
Because he or she's dealing with Alzheimer's.
Right, but somebody's coming into that room for 2 minutes every week and billing out for psychological.
But who would know that? But someone's got to know that that patient has Alzheimer's. A psychologist, psychiatrist is going in there or not going in there, billing for that time. Someone's got to know it.
The only person that sees the bills is the family. So you have to educate, I think. The family has to be educated.
Sorry for interrupting, Phil. Is it just educating them or letting them know they're in on it, and that's a problem?
Well, I don't know why a family benefits.
Do they benefit at all?
No way. They're not
in
that nursing home. What do they get out of it?
Are they aiding and I hate to use this term because I'm not.
Are they aiding and abetting the family?
Are they not aiding and abetting someone who is getting a benefit?
there is no benefit. The person the only person that's getting the benefit is the doctor.
That's what I meant.
That comes in.
I'm not saying the patient gets the benefit.
Right, so the family needs to look at those bills that
That's a great point.
that come and report it. Why is someone coming in once a week and charging for this?
That's a total scam. Chris, right?
Absolutely, Phyllis. We have a couple of cases like that, and a lot of times we get inside information from somebody who's either transporting the patients to and from the facility, letting us know that, hey, the person was only there for 10 minutes today. I don't think they've received the services that they're being billed for.
Who gives the tip? Somebody that's just transporting the patient?
People with good hearts and who understands that insurance fraud is a problem. It's a systemic problem. So a lot of times we have social workers who will tell us, listen, my patient that I work with only received 15 minutes of treatment today. Take a look at the billing. Maybe they were billed for an hour. Maybe they were billed for 2.
Jump back in.
The other tool here is some of this comes from consumer complaints or good citizens.
What do you mean?
The tips on fraud. Some of it comes from consumers or the providers, or somebody weighs in and says, well, this explanation benefit form isn't right. But a lot of it now is coming from data. So we're in the era of big data. You see it all the time. It's being used in healthcare by law enforcement folks and by health insurance carriers. So what they'll do is they have a lot of information in the data. They'll run through the claims experience and say, wait a second, Dr. Smith just billed for 26 hours in one day. You can't, so the data you wouldn't be able to pick that up necessarily by human hands, but being able to look through the data, and the insurance companies or vendors that they use will run inquiries and say, well, if Dr. Smith has a practice in, Middlesex and one in Mercer, was he billing at both locations
So
at the same
technology
time?
can help here?
And
Absolutely.
auditing. I mean, this ambulance thing came from an audit. I'm not sure who did the audit, but someone picked up the Medicaid, got charged $67 million.
So people who say to themselves, this is interesting, people who say to themselves, what are the odds? What are the odds that I'm going to get caught in this, whether it's a provider or a consumer or some combination, right? Come on. It's happening everywhere. The government doesn't have enough people. I'm just, again, playing this out. Come on. I guess it's the IRS argument in some people's minds where they're messing around with their taxes. What are the odds they're going to get me? I mean, what are the odds?
The odds.
I can't give you a number, but
I don't mean a
the
hard
odds are-
number, but it's not infinitesimal.
I wouldn't go into a doctor's office with the intent of committing insurance fraud and thinking that there wasn't possibly an undercover operation going on.
Or you don't even go in with that intent. Say the patient or the consumer doesn't go in with that intent, but the possibility comes up because someone has raised it within the system somewhere, and the consumer says, come on, what are the odds? These people know what they're doing, Chris, and I'll come back to you, Phyllis. What are the, I don't want to say what are the hard number odds, but people are convinced, some of them, that you're not going to get them.
Well, we're trying to get them, Steve, and it's still little or still big. A lot of times, like Ward was saying, the data, a lot of the providers will tell us what the hot code of the month is, where they're seeing they're getting hit. A lot of times the Medicaid fraud division in the comptroller's office will give us a tip because they do data analysis. And still little, a lot of times your neighbor will call and say, hey, listen, somebody put in a claim for a car, but I see it sitting in the driveway. So what are the odds? People are always watching.
You're getting more of them, aren't you?
We are.
Phyllis.
I think young people who don't use a doctor often or use services, they pay the bill or their insurance pays the bill and they don't think about it. As a person who's had medical issues my whole life and now approaching 70, I go to the doctor a lot. I now look at the hospital bills. I look at the doctor bills. I'm much more conscious of it. And our insurance provider at Citizen Action has actually, when he talks to our staff about our policies, he tells people, look at those EOBs, our staff. So we've had instances of staff just in the last 2 weeks who went in for a procedure who was charged something totally unrelated to what she had done.
Final messages in the minute we have left for people as it relates to this insurance fraud issue. What's the message you want to leave with people? By the way, if we could, one more time, let's put up the important website and phone number information. Because let me tell you something. Our job right now is to inform, to educate, and get people to do something, be part of the solution. Go. Final message.
First, I'm going to give you our number. It's 1-800-TEL-NICB. We have
1-800.
TEL-NICB, TEL-NICB.
Okay.
National Insurance Crime Bureau.
By the way, that will also be on our website,
Okay.
so go ahead.
Basically, if you see something that looks, report it. Call us, call the Attorney General's office. Chris and I work very closely together on cases, medical provider fraud cases in New Jersey.
Final message.
Final message is insurance fraud affects us all. It's not just the big corporations, it's individual people it affects, whether it's your money, whether it's your time, whether you're being used as a pawn for somebody else's gain. It affects us all.
Final.
We're all payers of insurance, whether it's auto or health. Unions are, the state is through Medicaid and the state health benefits program. Employers are. Spending it inappropriately on fraud is crowding out opportunities for new employment.
Phyllis, a few
And it
seconds.
takes a village. We all have to be very, very conscious of what we do, what we're charged, and who's charging us for what.
I promise this will not be the last program we do on the issue of insurance fraud. It is not a victimless crime, and trust me, it affects all of us. Thank you all very much.
The preceding program has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence, and 13 for WNET, NJTV, and WHYY. Funding for this edition of Caucus New Jersey has been provided by Valley National Bank, Felician University, New Jersey Resources, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, the New Jersey State Nurses Association, and the Institute for Nurses, NJ Best, and by Choose New Jersey. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. Caucus New Jersey has been produced in partnership with TriStar Studios.
What is your child's dream for the future? Doctor? Teacher? Architect? Whatever they aspire to be, a college education may realize those dreams. And NJ Best can help. It's the college savings plan specifically designed for New Jersey families. Start saving today with as little as $25, because now is the time to invest in their future. To learn about NJ Best 529 College Savings Plan, its investment objectives, risks, and costs, read the Investor Handbook available at njbest.com.